Hello, welcome to another one of our videos, and today I'm going to be discussing exercises you can do for fingers and wrist and various things that you can do if you have problems with your fingers or your wrist, which is very common. Doesn't necessarily mean you have an injury, it could be arthritic problems. Those of you who know me, I've had a lot of trouble with my fingers in recent times and my wrists, so plus the fact I've broken nearly all of them before as well. But these exercises are great to do all throughout the day, especially if you're an office worker who has that ongoing wrist problem. So first I'm going to look at some of the finger things. These look fairly simple, but trust me, if you have a problem in your fingers, these are quite hard to do. Alright, so I'm going to have a look at how they work. So this first one, you're just trying to bend the top part of the joint there. So they call that like a claw grip. And I'm showing you with my better hand on this first bit. On the next go I struggle with a bit more on my left hand. Then the next bit you make like a full fist. Then step 3 you make like an open fist, so the fingers are quite straight. And then the last one you sort of you're sort of straightening the fingers out. And you just sort of repeat that process over and over until you can feel like you can mobilize the joints better. So this hand, especially last year, I was really struggling with a couple of my fingers. It's sort of hard to really get this grip, and I found this very effective for relieving some of the pain, even though it was painful to do. Right, so now we're going to the closed grip, then the open fist, and then the straightening of the fingers. And you just, like I said before, you just try and repeat that. Even the straightening of the fingers can be very difficult to do if you have some of those issues around the finger. Now, sometimes it's handy to use little tools, and one of the best tools you can use is called a power web. Now there's like, to go through all of the exercises you could do this, I'd be here for like 3 hours, and there's sort of, you just got to be creative. But the best thing about this is sort of like adds resistance to some of the movements that you make with extension of the hand. So the ones I showed them were more flexing the hand, trying to close the grip, and you could use stress balls for that as well. But you can't really use a stress ball to get extension. Do you know what I mean? And you can open your hand out and do that, but sometimes, just like any other part of the body, you need to apply resistance. And this little power web, and it comes in like resistance bands that come in like light, medium, heavy, extra heavy. Same thing with this. There's like 6 different variations. This is a heavy one. All right, and what I'm doing here is I'm putting my fingers in between the little holes. I'll just magnify it a bit so you can see bit clearer. You basically can put your fingers in the holes and then try to flex up against the resistance of the rubber web, and you'll see like where my stronger fingers will do a better job, but my last 2 digits, my little finger and my ring finger, are really the ones that were quite sore, and I couldn't really do this very well. So again, like you can do the specific finger, you can do lots of different variations, and they're all quite handy to do. Now the other one that I spend a bit of time with is using the thumbs one, and you'll see, like if I'll get it magnified for you, you put your hands on the edge of the web there, and so you get a good grip on it, and then you place your thumb within there, and then you just try to do different versions of movements with your thumb. So this first part I'm trying to lift my thumb up. So this is almost like a wrist exercise as much as a thumb thing. So I'm basically trying to get my thumb to pull the tubing upward. Alright, so I'm basically trying to do that, and it's just very difficult to do. I had a lot of trouble with my left hand, my left wrist, trying to do any of these things, and it was getting really weak. And ironically, the more I kept doing these sort of things, the better it felt, even though it was extremely painful to try and attempt it. But I did feel heaps better afterwards, and then the next day I'd have to try and do it again. So yeah, again, I could go through a ton of the exercises that otherwise you could use this thing, but these are just some of the ones that worked for me. And they may be useful for you if you have issues around that area of your hands and your wrist. All right, so quite a handy little tool. You can also do things with the wrist and that as well in there, so you can do that little claw grip that I did before, but this is a little bit harder because I've got the resistance with it. So now I'm trying to sort of make a fist, but it's really hard to do because the resistance of the tubing is quite pronounced. You can even make a closed fist and push your hand in there and twist it around and get different variations of the rotation of the wrist as well. But yeah, quite a handy little tool. I use this quite a bit with some people with MS and cerebral palsy and that because they've lost a significant amount of muscle in their fingers and wrist as well. So, alright, so that's one of the tools I use. I also use a flex bar, so let's have a look at that. Okay, so the other tool I use from time to time is a flex bar. So it's just, again, it's another sort of rubber tubing type thing, and this one's handy to do extension and flexion type movements. So really handy because you can really twist it, and you can't break the thing because it's so strong, but it really allows you to get really good gripping feeling and place the wrist in these uncomfortable positions. So I can go with an overhand grip, in a pronated grip, and then the supinated grip. So it's also good for elbow problems, which I have featured before with the elbow pain. So it gives you really good forearm stretch, especially this one here. So I can get that. So really good for the golfer's elbow type exercise, this one. And I can even do practice like gripping things, where I'm sort of showing you here, where I can practice sort of opening a jar. Now, I had a lot of trouble for a good year and a half trying to do things like that. So you can mimic actually trying to twist open a jar and recreate the strength needed for the gripping feeling. So it's quite a handy little tool to do a lot of different things with the wrist and the fingers. And it's quite tricky when you do have a lot of pain. All right, so but it's one of those areas that it needs a lot of work, just like anything. And sometimes stretching and that won't do anything for you. You have to really work on some of these more specific type things. All right, so that gives you a few ideas. Again, there's many ways you can do these. It's not the only ones. They're just some of the ones that I found were very effective for my particular condition, and things that I've used and still use with some people that have issues with their hand and fingers. All right. Hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you on our next video.